Well, should we get started officially then? So welcome to the Tuesday Talk, especially if there's anyone who's new to this. Happens every Tuesday at round about this time. Unless there is some emergency. I have once had to cancel it, but if you just follow me on Twitter, then I'll keep you up to date with that. So we've already had some questions. Not quite TV, and I'm not sure your mum will be watching. But hang on, let's have a look in the old viewer list. No, there's no username that says Diablo's mum, so sorry. Maybe she'll watch it on YouTube later. The I've forgotten what we were going to talk about. Oh yeah, so someone already brought something up about Mythic Plus. Are they going to change it? So yeah, obviously BlizzCon. When is BlizzCon now? What is it? 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks? Nearly about that. And there are some things I sort of know that they will talk about, but there's also some things I'm very interested in myself. Do I think Blizz is working on a VR game? I really don't think so. Virtual reality for me, like it seems to go round in cycles. Like they had this VR, and is it next Friday? I thought it was November. Oh, even better. Fine. When you say next Friday, you don't mean this Friday. You mean the Friday of next week, not the next Friday coming. Which would place it in November, wouldn't it? Yes, okay. No, virtual reality. See, virtual reality, when I was a teenager, was a thing. They brought this thing. And it didn't take off, because you know what? It was crap. Because the technology wasn't there to do anything decent with it. So now the technology's moved on. So they've gone, oh, we can do even better things with it now. So VR's making a comeback. But it's still crap. Because no one has yet come up with the idea of something that is better. You know, a more interesting system with a VR thing. I mean, I think part of the problem is that headsets in general, these VR headsets, I mean, it may have improved compared to how it was in the 90s. But they're still not... I think they're things that people don't like wearing for any great length of time. Because they can be disorientating. So, yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. I remember getting... I mean, okay, these were cheap ones. These were hardly an Oculus Rift. But again, years and years ago, must have been 15 years ago or more. Hi, Masasha. And I got myself, like, a pair of things so I could, you know, not so much for gaming, just, you know, even just watching DVDs. And it was just, oh, no, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible wearing these things. Because, you know, it was billed as, oh, it's like watching this giant television. Yes, a giant television that gives you a headache. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shamrock. So it is the third. There you go then. So 1.5 weeks then. But, so yeah, I really don't see anyone trying to make anything for VR. Because I think it's one of those things, when a technology comes out, it has to go incrementally. But there has to be a reason to buy it. Because already when you get something new come out, it's always really expensive. And it gets cheaper as more people buy it, you know. But there's no reason to have VR at all. Like, no one has come up with anything that's like, oh, I really want to do that, but I'd have to have a VR headset to do it. I've never seen anything. So it's always, what is a VR experience? It's always, oh, you're exploring this spaceship or something like that. You're just walking around. Oh, isn't it great? You can interact with things. I can do that with a mouse and a keyboard. I actually have a new keyboard today as well. I am going to be cocking up so much in tomorrow's raid when the reset happens, because I've gone, for the first time, I've gone for a mechanical keyboard. The reason I had not gone for one before was because I couldn't find any mechanical keyboards with an LCD display, and I've been so used to, like, I had a G19, I had a G15 before that with the LCD display, and I sort of got so used to it, I thought I don't want to lose it. But now I've just come to the conclusion I don't use it that much. So I've got myself a... But the keys are really high up, so I'm like putting my fingers on it, and I was just having a little go on Elder Scrolls Online earlier. And it was like, oh, this is really weird. And I keep knocking caps lock. So I'm going to be shouting very angrily at people in chat as well until I get used to it. So, but that's really weird. But yeah, so No, I can't see virtual reality being a thing for gaming for a long time. I'm not saying ever. Obviously, I think it will at some point. But I think... I don't know. To me, it has to work on a multiple senses, I think. So I don't see it. I don't see anything that's getting anyone excited about it. So it's another one. It'll come around again in another 20 years' time. Someone else will go, I know what went wrong the last 2 times. They'll try something out. That'll be a disaster as well. Because, again, no one will have a good idea for it. At some point, someone will have a good idea for it, and then it will happen. No, you go right ahead with other topics as well. Do you already look up the new healer sets from Taurus? No, I don't know anything about healing. All I know about healing is when my bar's not full, I'm conscious of healers. And then when it is full, I'm very happy with them. That's all I care about. Is my bar full? Someone will at some point, but it has to be more than one person. Again, no one's going to buy this. Well, not enough people are going to buy a set for one good game. The whole industry has to. Someone has to come up with an idea. You know, there's no point in creating games that can work on like a normal PC or console. Someone has to come up with something that, you know what, this wouldn't even work on a PC. It wouldn't even work on a console. It has to have that VR to it. And that's what's difficult. I don't think Blizzard's going to be the first. But yeah. So now I haven't looked. All I've looked at in Taurus is my own sets. That's all I care about. And I'm still expecting my own set to be changed around as well. Like my main, I haven't actually done it yet because I've been too busy. VR sets run off the PC or the console. But what I mean is, yeah, but that's what I mean. Just replacing the display mile isn't worth anything for a VR set. It's like, why? Why not just look at the monitor? So there has to be some reason to do it other than gimmick. There are always some people that will buy a new piece of technology because it's new or shiny. And if I had more money, I'd be one of those people. But for the mass market, there has to be an actual reason. Like DVD players followed video players because there was an actual reason. There was a thing that came after video players and before DVD players, which was Laserdisc players. And the problem with Laserdisc players, they were like DVDs, only the discs were like that. They were like dinner plates. Surprisingly, it didn't take off. DVDs took off because you could have a lot more stuff on a small disc. Your bar does not matter to me if you're not standing a healing stick. We don't stack up anymore, Masasha. Raids have long since passed the point at which we get to stack up now. No, you won't have heard of laser displays because they were an absolute disaster. They were around for a few years with very wealthy people going, oh, this is the next thing, I will buy it. It's a load of crap. So, yeah. No, we can't stack up for healing anyway. We can stack up occasionally. Sometimes, of course, like on Darkness on Kill Jaden, you need a massive... So you get to stand in one place there. But most of the time you don't get to. What do I think will be the best legendary combo in the next raid? I don't know. I think it'll change from boss to boss. And it'll also depend on other gear you've got. That's the thing with legendaries, isn't it? You know. I mean, if you say cloak with something, then what happens when you get like an... What is it? 970 or something? Or 975 tier cloak or something with great stats. It's like, maybe I go for another combination. I mean, you don't always use the best combination for legendaries anyway. Like on Mythic Kill Jaden, I am not using the best legendaries. In fact, if I sim my BIS legendaries, I'm not using either of the 2 BIS legendaries for that fight. Yeah, I'm sure shamans and druids as well would quite like, shamans more I guess, people to stack up. But unfortunately the only people that will ever be stacked up are the melee, and that's because they sort of need to take the boss. Most of the time stacking up is dangerous for the whole raid. Yes, I'll be streaming while they do the WoW one on the Friday. I'm not making any promises about the Saturday. Obviously I won't be streaming the actual their stream, because that would be naughty.
You're not allowed to do that. But I'll be streaming myself. I'll be listening to it. You won't be able to hear it because I'll put it through the virtual audio cable. But I will be streaming on Friday whilst watching it to sort of comment there and then. Am I keeping emissary caches for 7.3? I don't know when 7.3.5 is. No. Well, I also won't be able to get the legendary stuff, really. Like, did it work last time? I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if it worked last time. Hold on. There's a message I've got to allow. Oh, it's because you're using unkind language. Yeah, you need to try and avoid that. So it all depends whether it works or not. See, sometimes Blizzard say that there's no point in storing up emissary caches. You can only store up like 2 days worth anyway, because you're not going to get anything out of it. Sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. Hi, I'm Brothy. Are there any one-shots on Mythic Mistress that don't proc Age of Shalmer? I strongly suspect the crashing wave, sorry. But I've never used those braces on that fight, but it doesn't proc Divine Intervention. That's actually what annoys me about Divine Intervention talent and cheat deaths in general. Like, my bubble will protect me from crashing wave, should I decide to stand in it for whatever reason. But if I don't use Divine Shield and I just go, oh, well, I'll just let it pop, the cheat death won't work, because it does too much damage for the cheat death to work, but not enough damage for Divine Shield not to work, so... It's not that cheat death is a skillful ability. It is that it always, well, I think there's only 2 classes that have it in there. Oh, no, there's not. No, there are more. But for all the classes that have it, shall we say, at least, I'm thinking at least in terms of rogues and paladins, there are other good talents it's occupying the slot of. So given that it's occupying a talent slot that could be spent on something useful as well, they ought to at least make it all right. And it's not like I don't have anything to survive it. Like a rogue, fair enough, doesn't have anything to survive it. If they stand in Crashing Wave. They're just dead. But I do. So I could just manually press bubble. So what's the difference between manually pressing it and just letting it auto-press, seeing as I've spent a talent point on it? And why do we see the old god thing in the background? That's because that's what's going to be there. Well, basically, I had to redesign the background anyway because people kept noticing it didn't quite fill up the screen. So while I was doing it, I thought I might as well go with what is clearly going to be the theme for the next expansion. As soon as it's announced at Blizzcon, then that's what everyone's going to focus on. It's quite ironic, really, because we'll still have a major raid to come in Legion, but all people will be talking about after BlizzCon, of course, is the next expansion. And all the funniness they describe. Yes, yeah, Crashing Wave does kill you through cheat death. It's the same as the eye as well on that Astromancer fella in Nighthold on Mythic. You could bubble it, but you couldn't cheat death it. What are the best legendaries for Mythic Plus? Really quickly then, as it's ret specific. It depends. Like this week, with it being fortified, well, actually, it's got Quaking and Teaming as well. It also depends on the instance. Like for pure DPS, I would generally say Soul of the High Lord, and then it sort of depends on other gear you've got and what have you. But with it being fortified, I wouldn't bother with taking both Liadrins and the belt, because the problem then is, with it being fortified, you want stuff I think that works outside of Crusade as well. So I would say Soul of the High Lord and Cloak it works in Crusade well, and it works outside of Crusade well. But it does depend on other items you've got. And then if it's tyrannical, then I would go the full the ones for Crusade, so the belt and the ring. But then again, also, if you're afraid of dying, you think it's a bit dangerous. Like today, for example, I was doing a quarter star 16, and I took my cheat death braces, because why not? And it did pop a couple of times.
Yeah, well, cheat death is an obvious talent. If you've got it, it's an obvious talent to take on progress because accidents will happen. And it allows you to learn from them without being too costly. You can swap gear between trash and boss, yeah. So when your arm, like if you have braces with the cheat death, if they pop, then you can switch to another set because it's on cooldown anyway. You can't, it won't proc again for another 3 minutes anyway. So you just switch to something else. I don't do high enough keys to really need to min-max that level, though. So let's have a look. Hold on. Need to get caught up here. You're already thinking about what class to play next expansion, not excited about Legion anymore. That's sad, isn't it? By the time the Alliance and Horde return to Azeroth, how much time... Well, the Alliance and the Horde are still on Azeroth. There's only a few of us gone. Someone was pointing out today on Twitter that Sylvanas hasn't done anything. Sylvanas, the new war chief of the Horde, ever since that quest in Stormheim, has done nothing all expansion. She hasn't featured in any of the storylines related to the raids or the dungeons or even the new zones. She's been nowhere. Also, Anduin, after all his tramping to the Broken Shore, has again done nothing since. He hasn't. All right, admittedly, he probably wouldn't have been allowed to go to Argus, but still, he's not featured in any way either there at all. Hi, JD. Yes, my Tuesday is actually going pretty well. I got some nice rest today. Did a couple of videos, well, 1.5 videos. Finished the other one off tomorrow. And install my new keyboard. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can save sets and quickly change them if you're in the habit. But as I say, for me, I tend to do... My attitude to Mythic Plus is I really like the system. I think it's a really great system. And if people, like, if let's say I'm not doing anything particularly, I'm just playing casually, and people in the guild say, oh, does anyone want to do this Mythic Plus? I am available to do it. I've never refused to do it. I've never gone to someone. I've chunted sometimes. Someone says to me, do you want to do a +20 Blackrook hold? I'll go, Fortified Quaking, are you mad? But I'll still do it. And then say, I told you so, 5 minutes later. But what I don't like is any content that makes me do it. So like today, I hadn't done any Mythic Plus this week because I was doing lots of other things as well. I didn't happen to be online when people were looking for groups, so I missed everyone in the guild looking for it. So there's me. It's Tuesday now. This is the last day to do it. And I was thinking, I was looking through the group, and I think I'm going to have to pug it here. I've left myself having to pug a +10. But then I did end up pugging it, sort of, but there's someone else in the guild who was part of that pug asking for a DPS. So that's why I ended up doing the +16 Court of Stars. But that's the only one I've done. And it's not actually bad affixes this week either for most of the dungeons. But that's my attitude with Mythic Plus. I don't, you know, if I don't happen to do any because I'm not online when other people are wanting to do them, I don't particularly feel that I want to be compelled to do them. What sub-race would I want for my Paladin? I think, well, race is the operative word, I think, if we're honest. Because what I would quite like to see them do is... I mean, with humans are always a really weird one in role-playing games. Because, in fantasy role-playing games, because they're the one race that actually exists in real life as well. I think that's possibly what makes them very popular as well. I mean, in my case, it was just pure coincidence that I rolled a human one. Because it's to do with the Warcraft 3 characters. In other... I can't think of any other MMOs where my main character is human. Oh, I may be wrong about that. Oh, no, Lord of the Rings Online it is as well. Fair enough. But generally speaking, it would be something else. But, so, in terms of racial options, I wish there were more actual racial options. Because what you notice is, if you're rolling a human in World of Warcraft, basically, you get white. You might get someone with a bit of a tan. That's about it. So maybe they should add some actual proper racial differences for the humans. The dwarves is the obvious one. Just have dark iron dwarves because they look sufficiently different. I mean, you could probably come up with a sub-race for all of the races. Let's go through them, shall we? So humans just have more proper actual races for humans. So dwarves, dark iron dwarfs.
All right, I don't know about Worgen. Well, yeah, I don't know about Worgen. Maybe you have a Dalmatian type thing for them, so black with spots and stuff like that. Hi, Cliffado. Let's have a look. Yeah, but fantasy dwarfs. The dwarfs that we see in fantasy games, like your Tolkien, Warhammer, Warcraft type dwarfs, don't exist in real life. Warwick Davis doesn't go around with a giant beard going down to his feet and getting drunk all the time. I've forgotten where we were. Go on, I'll just read what other people are saying. Yeah, leper gnomes for gnomes. You could have half races, certainly. That would be a possibility, wouldn't it? Combination races. They'd have to sort of abandon the old racial system then, though, wouldn't they? Orcs, someone already suggested. You've got the orcs from Draenor, the ones that never took the blood of mana off. So the brown orcs there. Or you could have fell orcs, but fell orcs wouldn't make a great deal of sense. Once we've defeated the Burning Legion, does it make sense to suddenly have fell orcs as a playable race? No, it doesn't. So, but the brown orcs that you get from the native to Draenor. Trolls, I don't know if there's as much variety. Because there aren't really... There's different factions of trolls, but I don't think there's different types of trolls, are there? Are there? Or am I just forgetting something? Pandaren and Subrace, I mean, yeah, I don't know what that would even be. Because... oh, yeah, Saber Stalkers. Yeah, that'd be a good idea for Worgen. They'd be more cats, wouldn't they? But yeah, that'd make them different, wouldn't they? Yeah. Draenei, Eredar. Well, we already getting Draenei ones, supposedly, anyway, potentially. These Lightforged Draenei. Yeah, there's troll factions, but I don't know about different actual types of trolls. But, they'd have to keep to sensible sizes, though. They couldn't just make a giant troll. Oh, Broken. Yeah, Broken would be a good one for Draenei, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be a good one. What ones haven't we gone through yet? Undead. Like someone already suggested, I think, on a video that undead elf type thing, like a Sylvanas type look. It'd also be easy. Blizzard could easily, with a flick of a switch, bring in more customization for undead, because in China the undead models are all different. Because in China, because of a cultural thing, they're not allowed to have the bones sticking out. Apparently the sight of the bones is, for cultural reasons, not reasons of sensibility, a no-go. So they're all covered in skin and flesh. They don't have any bones protruding. So you've instantly got a whole set of customization there as well. Broken are the ones that devolved from Draenei. But they're not runts as such. There's some very powerful Broken. Undead, the Withered from Suramar. Yeah, that's... I'm not sure that makes gameplay sense so much, because the idea of the Withered is they've lost their minds. So it doesn't necessarily make it ideal as a playable race. Granted, the same argument can be used about gnomes, but then gnomes were never my idea. Fell orcs are red, but I wouldn't advise fell orcs, because fell orcs are like the Legion-infused orcs. We're just defeating the Legion. It doesn't make a lot of sense to then introduce, after we've defeated the Legion, Legion-themed things. So, I don't think so for that one. But the Draenor orcs would be different enough, and that would allow more customization there. Shivara. You don't get to have more weapons just because you've got more arms, though. Yeah, it was Illidan that bred the Fell Orcs, but it was still using Fell. It's still... Because he was working for the Legion. He didn't make them to fight the Legion, no. I mean, I know Blizzard have been retconning the hell out of stuff. But he built up the Fell Orcs at that period of time following Warcraft 3, when he was basically on Kil'jaeden's orders. Well... The Fell Orcs presumably do breed. I don't think he neutered them all.
But again, it just, for me, they are, I mean, you know, anything, any race that has been corrupted by the Fel, which ultimately has been a result of the Burning Legion, would seem strange. Following the immediate... I mean, all right, we're not killing out demons. The demons are still there, and the Fel still exists as a thing. But anything attached to the Burning Legion, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. High Elves not addicted to Arcane. Well, there are already sort of some. I mean, well, that's what I assume is meant by these Void Elves. That they would effectively be... It's a way of getting High Elves, but they'd be a subrace, so it would be a Night Elf choice. That's what a lot of people seem to be confused about. I had so many comments about people when I talked about the Void Elves being a Night Elf choice. Oh, don't you mean High Elves? Illyria's a High Elf, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, yes, but we don't have High Elves in the game. Well, we do in the gameplay, but not in the choice. We have Night Elves. The whole point of a subrace is it's a different race to the choice you're making, but in that choice. So you would choose Night Elf, and from that, you would get a choice between an actual Night Elf and this other one. Is how I assume they would do it. I don't know, of course, because they haven't announced it. They need to add new cat or bear forms for druids. Well, you're getting to keep the transmog from the thing. Artifact skins. So there will be a reasonable range of cats that you can have even when you've chosen your actual one. But I mean, for me, there should be much more customization, full stop. Another thing that I don't like, and I don't understand why this is a thing, like, because speaking of druids, because they're ones that have multiple forms, and I think you should be able to customize all of those forms. Worgen, that's it, I'm trying to think of the name. So, Worgen have 2 forms, and you can customize them. But the thing is, like, you can choose whether you customize the wolf version or the human version, but you can't customize both. It's like you customize one version, and it automatically generates the customization of the other. I don't like that at all. So then what you try to do is customize it so that you're okay with the human form and okay with the wolf form. If you start playing after Legion ends, will you be able to get the Legion artifact weapons? Well, they'll still... The way I'm assuming it works is that we'll get rid of them at the start of the new expansion. So someone leveling through and getting to level 100 would still do all the same quests for Legion that would include the artifact weapon. It's just presumably it's going to be made a weapon that we lose when we do the very first quest in thing. But in terms of the... Yeah, but that skin's not the actual weapons, Mal. So, yeah, we'll be allowed to use the skins as transmog, and we'll be able to obtain skins apart from, yeah, the M+5. 15, sorry, in the Mage Tower. I suppose that depends what you meant, Kishasha. If you meant the skins, yeah, you can get all of them apart from those 2. You can get the recolours of the Mage Tower one. So if you, let's say you get the Mage Tower one, so you've got the base one. But like me, I haven't got any of the recolours of it. And let's say that I can't be arsed, I don't get them. But then the next expansion comes out. And then I decide I want them. It's not too late, I can get them. Because I've actually got those ones. At the moment, the skins are tied to the artifacts, but in the next expansion, they're going to make them up for transmog. See you later, Finway. So you'll be able to transmog them onto any weapon, or any weapon you obviously. I assume it's got to be within the same category as always. I don't think you'll be able to like transmog the Ashbringer onto a shield, say, or something like that. Although one thing I'd be interested to know, because at the moment, where you've got 2 weapons, like a one-hander and a shield, let's say Holy Paladin, because this is the one I'm concerned about. So Holy Paladin, at the moment, you just have one weapon. Whereas in actual fact, Holy generally has a main weapon and an offhand. Which I like shield, but it doesn't have to be shield. So let's say I wanted the silver hand transmogged onto whatever is my healing weapon in the next expansion. Is that going to basically make my shield invisible? And if the answer is yes, then that's annoying. And I bet it is yes. How the mogging will work is just how it will now. No, you won't be able to do it. No, because transmog, the rules for it which exist right now is you can only transmog if that character could use it. So, for example, there's Paladin tier gear that you have the transmog for, maybe. You can't transmog that onto your warrior now because your warrior can't have it. The only exception to that rule is tier 3 because tier 3 didn't have any class restrictions on it because you had to do a quest for it. So you got the items in Naxxramas and then you turned it, you did a quest. It wasn't like having to do anything, but you turned it in. So the arm, that's why people buy it on the black market auction house for all sorts of characters because that, you know, but in general, tier sets have like class restrictions, so you can't transmog it on another one. So it'll work exactly the same. Subrace, as long as it's not available to buy in store. Oh, I'm with the microtransactions again. That would indeed be sneaky. I'd like to instantly say, like the first thing I thought when you said that was, no, they won't do that. And then I thought about it and thought, they might do that. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't rule it out. Because at the end of the day, there will be people there that aren't developing the game. Their job is to maximize profits. Simple as that. And if I was, if someone was asking me, right, we need to maximize profits on World of Warcraft, first thing I would do, is I would massively expand the amount of cosmetic rewards available and make ones that are online store exclusive. And because if it's cosmetic, there will still be people who won't like it. There will be people who like it, which is why you'd want it incremental. But you get away with it if it's purely cosmetic. I mean, literally purely cosmetic, because no one can really argue then, because it's extra. Subraces are purely cosmetic, so. Oh yeah, I saw that on Battle.net. Yeah, I've got, what is it now? I have a little thing in the present thing. It's for Hearthstone or Heroes of the Storm, which I don't play. What is it? Hearthstone card packs and new heroes are now giftable on the Blizzard web shop. Here's a free pack on us. Gift expires 31st of December. I mean, I'll probably claim it at some point, but I don't play either of those games, so. Charging WoW tokens for in-game service will be considered real dollar transactions. I don't know. No, I'm not doing giveaways. There aren't any decent mounts anyway on the online store. They're all rubbish. They need to come up with some good ones. Like on well, for those who are patrons, you've already seen it. But on Thursday, I've got the next in the series of comparing WoW with Elder Scrolls Online. And because microtransactions has been such a topic of discussion on my channel recently, I've shunted the order around a little bit, and I've done it on the online store, the difference between them. And the stuff on the WoW online store is actually more expensive for what you're getting than on the ESO one. The ESO one has lots more on it, but they don't charge as much. And also they have exclusives on there. Now they do on the online store for WoW as well. It's just the exclusives. They're not very good. Sometimes they really should put their best mounts on the online store. They should commission loads of mounts from the art team and then pick the best ones for the online store and put the crap ones in game. Well, I'm not saying that any are crap, but Well,
Kasasha, they have to make money. If there's a free-to-play model in a game, then they can't actually have it free-to-play. Free-to-play just literally means you buy what elements of the game you want. But I always think it's always better and better value just to get the subscription. Well, I don't know the details of it. Well, I say free to play. I think you've got to buy the game. But you don't have to pay a subscription. I don't know how free to, as I say, but you don't have to pay a subscription. But it's worth it to pay a subscription. Because if you pay a subscription, then all you have to do really is... What got me into ESO? Well, it was at a time when there wasn't a lot going on in WoW, and I started playing the beta. I couldn't get into the full beta. I could only get into these ones where they, for the weekends, where they wanted to stress test it, basically. So all I was able to do was the starting area. So I was playing that. I'd never played any of the Elder Scrolls games before, and I still haven't. But I thought it was so good, I couldn't wait to get it. I thought it was brilliant. But unfortunately, it brought out before it was ready. Hi, Picatag, I'm alright, are you? Do I think I'll be able to hit artifact level 75 before on Taurus? Not quite, no. At the moment, I'm only really going up one level a week. So what do I think it'll done? So I think next, I'm at 70 at the moment. So it'll be 71 next week. 72. 73. I think I'll get 75 during the normal and heroic. So I think I will be 75 for Mythic, which will be quite good timing. Yeah, well, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind is a game that a very good friend of mine raved about at the time. And I almost might have bought it, but for the fact that well, there were other games I was playing at the same time that I was, dedicating a lot of time to. So, I knew that I didn't really have time for another one because with work and the games I was already playing. No, I haven't played any Elder Scrolls games at all. Not one. I've played Elder Scrolls Online. That is the only one I've ever played. So, I don't know anything other than what this friend used to tell me about. Because, I mean, when I started playing Elder Scrolls Online, I would talk to him about, the things in it. And then he would start to talk about, again, his Morrowind and Skyrim himself. I don't know if he played any of the others, actually. I'm not sure he did. Yeah, it is single, yeah. But, yeah, it's... I mean, I know, because it was actually quite funny, because when the game was getting ready to come out... Hi, Vane. I was on the forums, and there was a clear divide. I made a lot of enemies, because I was coming onto it as an MMO player, and I was interested in that side of it. But I had no attachment to the Elder Scrolls games at all. Now, there were a lot of Elder Scrolls fans there, as you can imagine, who were being very protective of it and were not... They were very defensive about everything. They were desperate that it didn't spoil the Elder Scrolls. They sort of saw it as a usurper, as something coming in and shaking up the established order. Because what they really wanted was an Elder Scrolls 6, and it's not what they were getting. They were getting an Elder Scrolls Online. So, yeah. So there was, and I was sort of talking about, MMOs, they sort of have this and this, and they were all going, no, it mustn't have that, it mustn't have that. And I was like thinking, well, it's going to have to.
Do I do multiplayer content here? So I haven't done since I came back to it because I haven't been able to play it for any length of time. I did nip into, and I'm going to stream later on tonight after this, not immediately after this, but later on, late one. I'm going to do some Elder Scrolls Online where I might well do another bit of PvP. I might go to Cyrodiil again, which is the PvP zone. Because I went in there a few days ago, just solo. I didn't join any groups or anything, just to have a little wander around. Because I did it in a previous stream, but there was no. It was too late then. It was far too late, and there was no action on at all. Because you know, European realm. So I'm thinking if I start it a bit earlier, I might actually get some action. But yeah, I did. The thing I noticed, which I didn't really appreciate when I first started playing it, well, it depends on the times you go there. You know, there was people in there when I went. Obviously, at certain times, it's going to have more than others. But the last time I went in there a few days ago, there was plenty of action there. It was always fine. But one thing I noticed, because I've completely forgotten everything. I don't know, like, if anyone catches me in PvP, I'm dead. I'm just finished. Apart from anything else, they've got way higher level than me. And, but also I don't know what I'm doing. So I was going in there as a healer, and I was just pressing healing buttons. Didn't know what they did. I'd forgotten which did what, so I just cycled through them all. One of my characters is called Thete, yes. In terms of my ID name, I can't remember. It might be Thete6 or something. But yeah, so one thing I noticed, which is very different to a click game where you click target, like in WoW, is I was on the ramparts of a fort and some people came along, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder if they're on my side or not. And I was trying to see them, and I couldn't because they were out of range. Whereas in WoW, if you can see them, you can click on them. Don't matter how far away they are, and it'll come up with their name and everything. Whereas in this game, no. Unless they're quite close to you, you can't actually see what they are. Summoner guy. What, you mean the sorcerer? If you're going to shoot a bow, if you want to be a DPS, you don't want lots of plate. You want medium armor. But anyway, let's get back to Warcraft. I assume we're all perfectly happy. I did have something prepared because I thought this one might come up. I assume we all know that that is a fake, don't we? Do I think they'll do WOD time walking? Absolutely. They've said that with time walking, they don't want time walking for the previous expansion, but they do for the one before. So in next expansion, which is not Tides of Vengeance, this is a fake. Yeah. It's such an obvious fake as well. Like, I don't understand how people could think it could even be real. Like, first of all, you always get these at this time when it's before an expected announcement. You always get them. Second of all, there's this writing up here. The waves are her domain and the storm is her ally. Blizzard have never done that. That's like your blockbuster movie type catchphrase, isn't it? It is fake because you can tell it's fake. There's several things that actually guarantee it's not just because, you know, you don't. So Blizzard have never done this before. Second of all, look at these options down here. The pre-purchase thing and this opt-in thing. That's on an actual account. Blizzard haven't put that. They'll have designed the logo, but the logo has not been put into any client because they don't need to. Why would they? As soon as you put it into a client, someone can data mine it. But they don't need to do that. And the other thing is there's another version of this where it says that the release date is the 30th of March. Behave yourself. There's no chance of being ready for the 30th of March. So there were like 3 different things that all sort of paint it as a fake. Plus the fact, as I say, something like that, a logo, the actual logo is really easy to design. They don't need a lot of people in on it. Most of the people working at Blizz HQ won't know. Even June be too early because the alpha, they need 9 months. The open alpha stroke beta takes 9 months basically, traditionally. Unless, you know, well, it will. It always does. So, and that's assuming it's in a pretty good state when it first goes up.
But it's not open yet now. There is no. If it was, you would see it on. You would see people doing it on YouTube. At the moment, there's an alpha going on, but it's very much closed. People have to sign NDAs and stuff. It won't be the day after BlizzCon. It might be. The last time they did it was within a couple of weeks, wasn't it, though? Or was it? Might be a few weeks. The other thing is, I would quite like it to be late June. Well, actually, in theory, in general, I'd like it to be late June because that's sort of in time for summer for me. I'm going to be on the virtual BlizzCon. Can't go to the real one. No, the pacing of this expansion has been about not being about having things quickly, but by having plenty of content. Ironically, the last couple of expansions, they've tried to have them. Because what they were saying is what they wanted, and this is not developers wanting this is money people. They wanted an expansion every year. Well, that's not even realistic. To have an expansion every year means you need to start testing it. It's like you bring out the new expansion, a couple of months later you bring out you announce the next expansion. Well, no. The only reason some MMOs get away with an expansion every year is because they're not tested very well and surprise, surprise, they're a load of crap. But the other problem, yeah, the June thing, they never bring it out. And I can't, after all this time, right, I am off for a quarter of the year. I'm off for a quarter of the year. So there's... people are saying the 3rd of November, BlizzCon. They've never brought out an expansion when I've been off. Ever. So I think they must avoid... Like some people say they avoid summer anyway. Because, for whatever reason. I suppose because not as many people are playing it. So I would think they'll want it round about the same time as Legion launched. Yeah, they haven't actually confirmed that there is definitely a raid. But at the same time, I don't think Ian Hazakostas was trying to throw... He's not the sort of person who I can say has ever thrown red herrings out there. So when he was asked the direct question, is there another raid after Antorus? For him to say there isn't going to be another main raid, and for him to say there isn't going to be a one-boss raid, he could have just said no. And he didn't. Hi, Lamnakan, I'm fine, thank you. You? Also, again, you just have to think about it from common sense. Antorus comes out, and let's say they bring out the next expansion start of September. That means Antorus will have been out for, what, 9 months? That's a hell of a long time. And even if they bring out some other types of content after that, people are going to see it as a raid out for 9 months. That spoils all their work on bringing out regular content throughout the expansion. So I definitely think there's going to be a Trial of Valor type, medium type raid. Without any tier gear attached to it, of course. Just, you know. And the other thing is, like I said on that video with the sub-racers, if they are going to have those sub-racers as they're stated, and although we can be confident sub-racers are a thing, we can't be 100% sure that those are the sub-racers. But let's say they are. Void Elves. Void Elves don't exist. There's like one. So they don't exist in sufficient numbers to be worth having it as a playable race. So that would suggest, if that's true, that there has to be some storyline that suddenly creates a load of Void Elves. So that would presumably, you know, be the storyline there. Most games launch around about November. The cold season, moving season. Yes, I guess so. That probably makes sense. So yes, I would suggest late autumn to early winter is much more likely for the release. Or an outdoor raid involving the changes in Silithus. It's possible. I don't know. I still like that map thing with the cross. I mean, that might be a
you know, a red herring, but... Mythic plus raiding, no. Blizzard even said, like, Mythic plus raiding wouldn't suit anyone. There's no one for whom Mythic plus raiding is desirable. Because as they said, if you're someone who clears the Mythic raids really quickly, why would they make Mythic plus raiding for those people? Because one, they're making it for a small number of people. Two, those people want a rest. They've killed themselves getting it quick progress. And if it's not for people that have defeated everything on Mythic, why do you need Mythic plus raiding? Because you've already got progress still to do. There's stuff you haven't done. So there's zero chance of Mythic plus raiding. Zero. The only thing I can think of them doing, innovation-wise for raiding, is if they, just for the sake of argument, decide to scale all the zones, let's say all zones scale, then you have to ask yourself, so what's going to happen to the dungeons and what's going to happen to the old raids? Do they scale as well? Now, if they scale, that would be bad news for people that like soloing them. So you could either just say, well, they won't scale, they'll be at that proper level, which probably makes sense, just leave it at that. Or you could have some scaling in it and then make a solo version of it. You know, make a version of the dungeon that's designed as a scenario, that's designed to be done as a scenario. And you wouldn't have to change the raid. You wouldn't have to change anything other than just scale it to be a reasonable challenging solo one. And maybe you're allowed a couple of NPCs as well to cover the roles that you are not. So if you want to heal it, you have a tank and a DPS and blah, 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 blah. You want something like the Legion pre-launch invasions. I am quite certain we're going to get those. If the next expansion is Old Gods related, it would be stunningly simple to have an invasion style event for the pre-expansion patch. It would be this. It could even use the same technology and everything. It would be the simplest thing in the world to do. Yes, raiders. Well, I don't know that raiders spend lots of time in. If you compare it to people who play other aspects of the game, I don't think raiders spend as much time raiding as, say, PvPers spend PvPing, or Mythic Plus Dungeoneers spend doing their dungeoneering. But it's, you know, when you are in there, I mean, it's fairly intense. Yes, it's certainly true, JD, that Dungeon and Past expansions became an afterthought for the most part. Someone was just saying this the other day, actually, that they missed the days when all dungeons were as something you did for the first few weeks until the raid came out, or while you were gearing yourself for the raid. Because sometimes the raid, in the early expansions, the raids came out with the expansion, so you could go straight in, but you needed to level up and gear up first. Except in Wrath, where the first raid was that second version of Naxxramas. Didn't even have to gear up. You just went in and cleared everything in crap gear. It was a load of rubbish. Well, I quite like I've said this before. For me personally, it's only personal. I know WoD was a bad expansion. But for me personally, it wasn't. Because the raiding was good. And you didn't have to do anything else. Fantastic. You know, the sole reason this channel exists, the one and only reason, is because of WoD. Because I would never have started this during Legion, because I'd have thought, when am I going to get the time? Obviously, because I'd already had the channel when Legion came out, I managed my time. But if I was to have started this channel now, which I wouldn't have done it, because it'd be like, you know. What would I prefer as the next expansion? In what way? Like, there is only one thing it can be, and I'm quite happy for it to be Old Gods and Naga related. I'm probably one of the few people that doesn't care whether Lady Vash is part of it. I'm sure she will be, because if you don't bring Lady Vash, what am I talking about? Queen Ashara. What am I on about? If you don't bring Ashara in an expansion like this, then what are you going to bring it in? Well, I think we are going to get half and half in the next expansion, new lore and established. The established lore, of course, is Old Gods, Naga, Call to Ras. New law, inevitably we have to have new law, because by defeating the Legion and doing all this stuff with the Void and the Light, they have blown open storylines that have not actually been properly explored up till now. So inevitably we are going to get some new lore. And probably because they're quite lazy with their writing at times, just in flat contradiction to everything else that's come before it. I mean, I thought it was curious that they've announced the novel for pre-release already when it's not even released until next year. That's about the events that take place between the defeat of the Burning Legion and the next expansion. I mean, I thought that was strange. And with that being called Before the Storm, I'm also thinking, because I was thinking, is that, because there has to be a 7.4, there has to be another storyline. And even if it's lighter on gameplay content than previous ones, although I suspect it may not be, apart from the raid. And I was thinking, is it going to be one that leads us into the next expansion, or is it going to be one that, like, is just mopping up after the Burning Legion? I think it's going to be leading into the next expansion now, because of the title of the book, Before the Storm. Storm, I mean, it could be a metaphorical storm, but, you know, they're not usually that subtle. So I think it's very likely to be Call to Ras related. I'm not saying we're going to go to Call to Ras, but, you know, I think, yeah, I think it's going to be related to the Old Gods invasion again, or rising up again. But, I mean, time will tell there. Because it's very difficult to say, like, from the PTR, because obviously we've got the new Silithus there, but it's not there on the PTR. But that's because I think it's not going to change until we kill Argus. Just like we didn't see Argus in the sky until we killed Gul'dan. Hang on, no. Kill Jaden, sorry. Behave yourself. Kill Jaden. I'm streaming during BlizzCon, yes, but I'm not streaming BlizzCon. I'm just streaming me watching BlizzCon and talking about it. Only key things. I'll put it up on the schedule. Obviously, I've now taken to put in on the offline screen actual dates and times of when I intend to stream, which occasionally can include impromptu streams, but so that will go up there. I'll have to make sure I get the time right. But yeah, I don't think it'll be completely new lore in the next expansion, just because we've already got several elements. I mean, we know about Jaina. Jaina has that tie with Call to Ras because that's where she's from. Those are her people. Her brother, presumably, is in command there. Because he's still alive, isn't he? Or as far as we know. Pandaren Druids Paladins next expansion. No, I don't. I'm not saying they definitely wouldn't open up class race combinations. But I'm not sure. You'd be more likely to have Pandaren Paladins. I'm not sure Pandaren Druids, it's like, so, you know, because bear form, it's like, well, you're already a bear. You mean a different bear. I'd have to call it different bear form. I am absolutely certain they will have a playable thing at BlizzCon. Because if you're going to announce an expansion, that's what they always do. They let you do the first few quests. Yeah, but there isn't a dog form for druids. So there's no confusion with Worgen druids. There is no dog form. There's cat form, and there's bear form, and there's space owl form, and there's deranged looking seal form, as well as stag and crow. No. I'm not even 100% sure. I mean, vampires have been in the game, of course. But I've never been 100% sure what they're supposed to be. in terms of fitting into the overall lore. The original aquatic form scared the shit out of me when I first saw it. I remember in vanilla doing a druid, and I did my seal form, and that wasn't very pleasant. It was ironic, wasn't it? Seal form, which gives you the ability to breathe underwater, but in order to get it, you're going to have to nearly drown. Thank you very much. I mean, okay, I could have used an underwater breathing potion, but I didn't know they even existed, because I was still a bit of a noob in the game, and I didn't have any alchemists. So, but yeah, when I first got seal form and looked at it, I thought, my God, this is mad. It's like a rabid seal. It was scary. And I thought it ironic that the only form that can't actually fight would look so scary. Maybe that was its defense. It can't fight back, so it just tries to scare away any enemies. But that was one of the alts that never made it to level cap. I made quite a lot of alts in vanilla. And the only one that ever got to level cap was the mage, and that's because I leveled it up so quickly. It was level 60 before I knew what was going on. It got to level 60 before I could get bored of it. Night Elf or Undead Paladin. I'm not even sure they would make sense. I'd be okay with Undead Paladins. Especially if they got rid of Tauren ones. I mean, Night Elf Paladins we probably have to accept because... you know, with Delia becoming a paladin, is she Delia? I can't remember what she's called now. Then they've basically created a precedent. Oh yeah, I leveled a warrior in vanilla as well. Wasn't as protection though. Must have been Fury because I remember dual wielding. But I got that to level 50 and then got bored of it and deleted it. So many wasted hours leveling things up on vanilla and then deleting it because I got bored with it. Or just didn't like the look of them. Because sometimes I'd get to a certain level and think, no, I don't quite like the hair. And then just delete it. I thought, I'll make a better one later on. But it took so long to level that it just like you never did. Hunters' pets could turn on if you didn't feed them, yeah. If you didn't keep them happy, yeah, they could, couldn't they? You always had to carry around a load of fish for your cat. There were some pets that were a bit picky about what they ate as well, weren't there? I think bears and pigs would eat anything. Cats really like their fish. I think there were some pets that are a bit funny. Actually, there was something funny on Reddit today. Someone was saying, I don't know whether this is faked or not. It sounds like the sort of thing I'd like to try. It's like a husband and wife type arrangement, I think. Like one of them has a hunter, they want to tame a hydra, and the other one had a mage, so it sheeps the hydra. Apparently the hunter was still able to tame it, which I thought was strange to begin with. But then when they tamed it, it stayed as a sheep. But it stayed as a sheep in the hydra colours. Now it could just be a Photoshop mock-up. Because it sounded too strange to believe for me. But I thought that was weird, if true. You were playing a prop paladin. Cloth. I never wore cloth as a paladin, ever. I thought twice before wearing mail. You sort of had to wear mail a little bit because there was there wasn't very much intellect play outside of tier gear. So you were sort of forced to. A little bit. Not loads. I didn't used to have loads. Because I had too much like self-respect. I used to have the Loom Guard arm braces, which dropped in Scholarmance. They were mail. They were quite good. And there was the belt from Strathome, the Scarlet side. You know, we used that one. But that was it, I think. I don't think I ever wore any other type of mail. But it was quite hard to gear up for dungeons if you were a warrior tank. Well, any other type of tank was generally not used anyway. So if you're a warrior tank, you could gear up for raids. If you were a DPS, you could gear up for raids. But if you were a paladin healer, you struggled. because all the healing gear from dungeons was designed for shamans, which you didn't even have as Alliance. So I actually used to get the shaman dungeon gear, those silly shoulders that look like a cup mug, a mug tree type thing. Looked like it was there for hanging your mugs off. Elements, wasn't it? The Elements set, I think it was called. Well, it's absolutely ridiculous. But until I could actually get some Molten Core gear, and you needed a certain amount of gear before you could go to Molten Core. So that's what you had to do. And I got myself a Hide of the Wild crafted, which was a healing cloak, which lasted me for a very long time. Oh no, I found it fine as a paladin. It would take a long time to kill stuff. No question about it. But you could survive. Like, if you weren't surviving, just use Judgment of Light. And then it would take even longer to kill them. But you would keep getting healing back. Because admittedly, your own heals weren't much good. Because if you didn't have intellect gear, which you probably wouldn't. I mean, why would you? If you're going around killing things. Especially as retribution. What you wanted was crit. Because I think that's where people did, like, where it was quite bad. If you didn't have a lot of crit. Because you had an ability called Vengeance, which every time you crit, it buffed you. So you did 5% extra damage. And it stacked up to 3 times. But it only lasted 8 seconds. So you had to crit at least, say, once every 7 seconds to be sure. Of not only building your 3 stacks up, but maintaining them. So I think because, in fact, was it even 5? It might have. I think that might have been the nerf version. I think it might have been a bigger damage boost than that to begin with. So yeah, what you actually needed was crit. So you had agility gear, basically, because there wasn't a lot of gear that just had crit on it, and you didn't have ratings either. So if something had crit on it, it was just like 1% crit or 2% crit. The paladin, well, I think the system is better now, but there are some things I miss. I miss seals, I miss auras, proper auras. I mean, alright, I understand if they didn't want to make them passive, because the problem with having them passive is you have to make them weak, because they can't be too strong. So, you know, fair enough, like the Holy Paladin's Devotion Aura. But we should have had an aura as well. They should have, like, to say they've gone to such lengths to talk about class fantasy in Legion, it's so hypocritical that they use it to remove what is clearly, you know, the fantasy of the Paladin class, which is seals and auras, because, you know, they don't even have the argument. Like with Hammer of Wrath, they had the argument that, oh, well, it's an execute, and other people have execute, even though I suggested, well, don't make it an execute then. But they didn't have that argument with seals and auras because no one else has them. They don't encroach on any other class at all. I think they just couldn't think of anything decent to do with them. But there you go. We'll just have to see what's in store for the next expansion. I mean, I hope they sort out talents. I know a small amount about potentially what they're thinking about with talents. But I'm hoping it's not true. Well, one of the things I'm hoping it is true, one of them I'm hoping it's not. But at the end of the day, I mean, even, you know, they'll change their mind a dozen times before then anyway. I mean, my big hope was, unfortunately, I'm not going to be in this position. I remember, when would it have been now? A year and a half ago? Bit less, bit more, something, can't remember. But whenever I was in Alpha and Legion anyway, and there was something they put in that I knew everyone was going to hate, and it was going to be a really bad thing. And sure enough, it was one of the first things they got rid of when Legion went live. But nonetheless, it got all the way to going live, and then it didn't get removed for another couple of months. So what I was hoping was that I'd be able to sort of report on stuff in Alpha and maybe get people discussing things, because most people generally only discuss things once they get to see it themselves, which is very late on. It's too late for Blizzard to change anything. Unfortunately, I'm not big enough to be able to do that now. So maybe we'll be looking ahead to the next expansion. Wonder if you'll get another talent row. We might do. It all depends on what they're going to do with the... We might just have another equivalent with artifact power. But it is possible another talent row. I'm not... the thing is, though, it's quite difficult because when you add another talent row, you have to then consider the way different talents interact with each other for balancing issues. And it's an extra headache for them. So... what they might prefer to do is just what they did this expansion, except instead of for artifacts, it'll be for something else. Two talents for a row would be easier to balance, but it's not really giving you... They can't even pretend that they're giving you any choice. I mean, admittedly now, there isn't actually any... The problem is, I think their philosophy is fundamentally unworkable. They have this philosophy that you choose talents based upon what playstyle you enjoy. But that's not true. Because in a given situation, one talent is always better. So what they should do is completely abandon that philosophy and say, right, what talents are is for giving you tools to be able to adapt. So you're going to go on this boss, right? And let's say Maiden. So this boss, it's single target DPS, not very much movement. All right, every now and then you clear off to the other side of the room. But generally speaking, not very much movement. Occasional bit of movement, because on Mythic there is anyway. On Heroic there's like no movement apart from when you run to the other end of the room. So you want talents that are going to be good for that. Then the next boss is Avatar. Single target fight again. But this time there's loads of movement. There's more movement than on Super Mario Brothers. Okay? So then what you do is you want to maybe have talents that will help you in that situation as well. And then another fight was where there's going to be regular ads that need DPSing down quickly. Talents for that. So you have the talents so that you can have everyone be able to adapt to any particular encounter, but they're not brilliant at everything all at once. So they have to choose, what am I going to be good for? Movement? Am I going to be good for survivability? Am I going to be good for single target DPS, cleave TBS, full out AoE DPS, that sort of stuff? Am I going to be focused on, doing a steady amount of damage through the fight? Am I going to be focused on doing mad burst at certain types of the fight, not so much damage at others? That's what talent should let you do. And I think if they change their philosophy to that, they would find it a lot easier to balance them. But that's my opinion. Obviously, I'm not a game developer. Or a designer, is what I actually mean. So I could be wrong, but that's what, that's my perception. You think it'll be a legendary trinket that we make stronger as we progress? Well, it might be, or it might be a piece of jewelry. It might be a ring again. It might be a neck. We haven't had Have I had any more thoughts on Silithus becoming a new light? Well, I think I mentioned it. I don't think it will, because I think it's supposed to be fell in nature, so it wouldn't be another Well of Eternity. It might be the opposite of a Well of Eternity, in that because it's fell-based, not arcane-based. It might be a way for them to attract demons back to Azeroth without the Burning Legion. Because remember, demons aren't going away. It's just Sargeras that we're defeating. So the Burning Legion will end. And demons are supposed to be not all that coordinated. Because that's the thing. There's no reason why they can't have more demon-based content. But then there has to be a reason for the demons to make a concerted attack on Azeroth, which they don't have the organisational skills for, apparently, according to the lore. They wouldn't mess up the set pieces again. What set pieces we're talking about? The tier set pieces. Yes, they will. So yeah, the thing in Silithus could, it might be a device to allow them to attract other things like demons and stuff like that, I guess. So that they don't wipe out demons as an enemy. Because I don't think it does you any favours when you sort of largely get rid of... because they did something in Wrath which I didn't think was a clever idea. This idea of when you defeat the Lich King, so then, alright, the Scourge is still there, but they're kept under check.
They're no longer marshalled. And then you had in Cataclysm redesigning the zones, and you have the plague lands being healed and all the rest of it. The problem then is you cut out a major enemy, a major force that you can fight against. Which I think is why some people are talking about the potential corruption of Bolvar as the Lich King. But that would be a bit cliched if they did that, I think. Oh, I see what you mean by messing up the set pieces. You mean having legendaries occupy the same slots as set pieces? Well, we'll just have to see. As I say, it's only quite recently that they even said they had an issue with having 2 and 4 set. And like the obvious solution to that is, well, just have 5 pieces of tier and don't allow legendaries to occupy those slots. So it all depends on how much they dislike it. Because I say they didn't previously, it's an obvious, it's an easy thing to fix anyway, easy. You need demons or the warlocks might get lonely. Well, no, the demons are still a thing. Also, warlocks don't just summon demons, do they? In fact, they might have a bigger part to play in the next expansion because they summon void gimps. So they're in touch with the void as well as with Fel in general. Even though I think it's classed as a demon, it's not, is it? Their Void Lord is, well, a Void Lord. Void Walker, that's it, sorry. Yeah, Void Walker. So they're like aberrations, aren't they? As opposed to, I think that's how they're officially classed. Like I remember in TBC, where you had some of these in Hellfire Peninsula, and their actual classification was aberration, as opposed to demon or anything like that. Which at the time was moderately annoying because paladins, your exorcism did extra damage against undead and demons. But not against them because they weren't demons. Although I think I could fear them if a warlock I was dueling with had them, I could turn. Could I? Because you had this thing turn undead, but it works on demons as well. Get the shoulders that increase damage against aberration from the new dungeon. It might be considered quite low item level by the time we're actually fighting these things, though. If indeed we are going to be fighting them. You would think so at some point. I mean, they'll have to be multiple things to attack as well. Because you never have every raid being the same thing. Like in this expansion, we had the Emerald Nightmare to start off with as well. And then you had Hell, yes, you had like Keepers as well. Actually, is she a Keeper? I can't remember now. I'm not sure. Maybe she's not. Maybe she was just a Titan construct. But, yeah, in the next expansion, so we can have Old Gods themed dungeons and raids, as well as Naga themed ones as well, which can have their own distinct thing. Turn Evil, yeah, that was it. I remember now. I seem to remember being able to use it on Warlock pets. Although, to be fair, I probably never duelled anyone that used a Void Walker. It's much more likely to be a Fel Hunter. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been as bothered by them. I'm not likely to have been concerned by something that generates loads of threat but does very little damage. Much more concerned by something that nicks all my mana. Because I didn't have very much of it as a paladin anyway. In fact, if I tried to help in a dungeon in my Imperial plate set armour, one holy light and that was it. That was my mana gone. And it didn't do much healing either. It was largely a waste of time. Much better just to carry on hitting stuff. But occasionally I used to fall into the trap of thinking I was helping. Yeah, in the early days though it would work. It works against undead and demons. But then it was removed completely.
which is probably just as well. Fearing things doesn't do you any good. I learnt this lesson on the first priest I ever made, again in vanilla, and I was in Dead Mines, and I feared something, and it ran away, and then brought friends back. So yeah, that was a bit of a mistake. But there was a epic ring you could sometimes get, a BOE ring, so you could get it on the auction house. I think it was a ring. There was something anyway in vanilla. And what it meant, casters would tend to use this thing. Not because of this effect, but because it had good stats, I think. But it meant that when you got hit, there was a chance. It might have been a set bonus, actually. It might have been a dungeon set bonus, now that I think about it. There was a chance on hit that you would fear the thing. And I thought, what a terrible set bonus to have. Because we already knew, we'd already learnt by the time we got to that level, that when you fear things in a dungeon, it doesn't go well. Fear should keep them in place. Well, I think the idea of running away was so that it was a double-edged sword. It was to get you to, I think about it. Otherwise, it might have been considered too powerful a source of crowd control. Given that it effectively had no... I mean, all right, you had no cooldown usually on these fears. I mean, some did. Like Paladin one did. Or it might have been a short cooldown. But Warlocks, I think... What did they have? Death Coil. Was that what it was called? I know DKs have that now, but I think Warlocks had that and it feared. And I think they could do that fairly... I think it had quite a short cooldown if it had one at all. But I don't know. I'm going to the Hazy Mortal Coil. Oh, is that it? That may have been it then. I'm going to the dark recesses of my memory here on characters that I didn't play very much, so I'm going to be forgetting. Yes, I'll only get things half right by doing that. But another thing I was asked this on I tweeted Warcraft devs. I've not had a response though. But to be fair, I don't think they respond to most of them. One thing I would quite like them to announce in the next expansion is a tab for the legendaries. Because I'm already looking at it now. I've had to try and delete a few things like disenchant some items. I'm looking at it thinking I might use it. It's quite high item level. But I've had to be tough with myself because my bags are full. And because I got another legendary yesterday, and I'm thinking it might, and it's not like as easy as putting them in the bank because my bank's full as well. So what I'm hoping is that in the next expansion at least that they create a tab for legendaries, just like we have the heirloom tab, because people aren't going to want to. Well, apparently you can't even delete them. I've not tried. I am told you can't even delete legendaries, but you wouldn't want to anyway, because some people might want to use them for time walking. Eventually, obviously, not immediately. So, and we don't want to carry them around in our bags or our bank. It was the Warlock dungeon set bonus, was it? There we go. I knew there was something that did that, Mythos. Thank you. Send bank stuff to the void storage. You're assuming my void storage isn't full. It's all full. Actually, no, I do have some space in my void storage. But the point still stands that some people don't. And you would think you'd come up with an... Also, you don't want to be stuck going to a time walking, having to take stuff out your void storage. I know it wouldn't come out straight away. It would be like older. Things they are likely to keep from Legion. Some sort of artifact power, yes, I think guaranteed. World quest, yeah. Champion missions, yes. I'm not sure about the order hulls. You might reason that if you're going to have the champion mission still, that you're going to have the order hulls, but maybe not. I don't know about that. I'm inclined to think maybe not. Well, Mythic plus dungeons, definitely. That's probably been the biggest thing they will keep. The legendary system will be changed to some extent. Whether it's going to be made better or worse, I don't know. But I don't think it will be radically changed. It might be significantly changed, though.
I'm a terrible hoarder. I'm a hoarder in real life and I'm a hoarder in game. I don't like getting rid of stuff. It's like, I'm one of those people that goes, it might come in useful. Like, I have stuff in the next room in boxes that have been in boxes since I moved here. When did I move here? I've been here now for 22 months. So nearly 2 years. No, 21 months, sorry. But still nearly 2 years, either way. And they're still in those. And someone said to me, if you haven't used it in like over a year, you're probably not going to use it. But I might. Will there ever be a time when Blizzard pays streamers for advertising their content? Why would they? It's a symbiotic relationship between streamers and Blizzard. Like there's some game companies, for example, can be quite arsey about you doing stuff like making videos and this and that stuff. Blizzard don't. Right from the start, they've engaged with community. You know, this is why they give keys. Alpha. As soon as alpha becomes open and people can do videos on it, the first people that get those keys are the streamers. Okay, and the big YouTubers. They're the first people that get them. Because ultimately, as soon as this goes open, that's when Blizzard are saying marketing time. They don't give it to the people who are going to do... I mean, some of them will also do a good job of testing. But that's not the reason they're giving those first ones out. Then, in the next wave, they start giving them out to the people that are likely to be doing some useful testing for them. But primarily, and it's totally free, like everyone gets something out of it. Big YouTubers, big streamers get to make a living out of it, and Blizzard get free advertising. So, yeah, you don't see as many WoW machinimas now, do you? I don't know whether it's because they're harder to do or just not worth the effort. I don't know. Yes, I noticed 7.3.2 went live, yeah. I mean, we had the download last week, didn't we? So, and it's not a big patch, so I did sort of suspect it would be this week. It doesn't bring a lot. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't, I don't think it even brings anything for me. Because the legendary tokens aren't going to apply to me. I still need half a dozen legendaries for my class. So I'm not going to get anything that's going to be useful from an alt. I'd probably get it for the wrong class anyway. Yeah, well, it's not nothing else. There are things. They've nerfed, like conversions of fates, for example, the Nighthole trinket. You know, the legendary tokens are now a thing. But it's not supposed to be a content patch. That's why it's called 7.3.2. Ah, they haven't broken the 11-week patch cycle because it's not a content patch. It's a patch because it's not hotfixes. They have brought something in that means it has to be a patch that you can't just put in as a hotfix. But it's not a 7.3.5. It's the 0.0s and the 0.5s that are on the 11-week cycle. Oh yeah, that's the other thing as well. The BattleNet is no longer in beta. I mean, I was already using it anyway. So you can create yourself... Oh my god, what the hell? You can create yourself, like, chat, you know, channels and stuff like that. Give yourself a little avatar, which you're not allowed to choose your own, which is disappointing. It is disappointing you can't use your own avatar. So I had to go for Uther, but other people that are paladins will also go for Uther. Speaking of the tokens, what do you think they should do to fix catching up for legendaries? What I think they should do is make legendaries a guaranteed... when you get your mythic cash, right, your weekly mythic cash, I think there should be a guaranteed legendary in it. Guaranteed. At the very least, I think that's what they should do. As well as... Because we're in a situation now, there is no need to make someone do stuff for months to get these legendaries. There's no point at all because there are players that have them all. I've had all the ones I need for my spec for a long time. They're balancing the content, the raid content around people having the legendaries that they want and having the Netherlight Crucible and a certain amount of artifact level and stuff like that. So... there's no reason to make it more difficult than it needs to be. So if they still want to persist with this random nature of it, guaranteed drop from the weekly Mythic caches, and massively accelerated rate of bad luck protection. I would expect, put it this way, I would expect someone who does emissary caches every day, you know, rares on Argus every day, at least one full Tomb of Sargeras, and a few Mythic Plus dungeons every week. I would expect them to get 2 legendaries a week. No, I created myself a nice little screenshot as well. Where is it? I've lost it again. I don't know what I did with it. There it is. Look, I made myself, you know, a nice little avatar that I could have used, but you can't. You've got to just choose from the list they give you. One thing you want to add is loads and loads more cosmetic rewards. I would as well. Like people do. I keep saying this. I say it till I'm boring everyone. There's already got told I was boring today. There's people like cosmetic rewards last forever. Like gear doesn't. Like we're already getting to the point where people will be thinking about when they're collecting gear at the moment. Oh yeah, but when Antorus goes live, you know, we'll suddenly get better gear. Because you'll do, for example, plus 15 dungeons, and you'll be getting better gear from your weekly cache. A new raid will be coming out, and you'll be getting better gear. Because it's like 940 just for normal, isn't it? So, is that right? I'm sure that's right. 940 in normal, I think. So it's 10 item levels. Have I got that right? Something like that, anyway. I think so. That would make it 10 item levels above, like the Mythic from Tomb of Sargeras. But yeah, the mock challenge mode. I wouldn't hold your breath on them making the challenge mode sets account wide, because they've never done it for the PvP sets. So the same argument will hold for let's get rid of that. The same argument will hold for the challenge mode sets as well. That if you haven't got them already on a character, you ain't getting them. Because I mean, I would have quite liked it. Because my argument was, their argument originally was, oh well, you might be able to get this rank in PvP on this character, on this class, but not this other class. And my argument was rubbish. The way I got my rank, which allows me to use now Grand Marshal and Grand Marshal gear, for Transmog, of course. The way I got that was just by, it was a summer, so I had time off work, and I just went into Alterac Valley a lot. In vanilla. Simple. So, and I could have done that on any class. All I was doing is stood at a flag most of the time. Are you sure about that? 9:30 for normal, is it? Okay. Okay. Well, even so, that's still normal getting the same item level as Mythic Tomb of Sargeras gear. So what I mean is there might be people at the moment, especially as soon as the restate is announced, they will be thinking to themselves, no point in getting this gear now, I might as well just wait a couple of weeks and get the same item level or better, easier, with easier content. Oh, 940 last boss normal, okay. That makes sense. But yeah, but cosmetic rewards, you know, when you have them in games, people go to a lot of trouble to get them. People go to a lot of trouble to get them in this game. You know, people solo, like you'll get people with multiple characters on an account and a second account. What I used to do, I didn't do it for very long, of course, because I'm not worried about spending that much time for cosmetic stuff myself. But you could set up a really, I would set up a really efficient way of getting Myrmidon's head, sorry. And I mean, I don't have it because I only did it for a couple of weeks and then got bored.
But on one character, on one account, get myself the lockout for Yogg-Saron, and then give that lockout to every single character on my other account, so they could just quickly go, and kill Yogg-Saron loads of times in like an hour. Haven't done anything on your main for weeks just so that any gear you get in Antorus is certainly an upgrade. Well, you may have to have a certain level of gear to be able to be allowed into the Antorus raid as well, you've got to bear in mind. But transmog sets should drop from the current raid as well. Well, I think transmog, you know, the transmog is very limited in WoW. Like, I think someone was saying on Discord, they would like, you know, they were looking at something, they said they would like WoW to improve its transmog. I think if you played any other MMO, you would want WoW to improve its transmog. I think it's the worst of any MMO I've played. Or recently, at any rate. Not that I've played many. I suppose the way... I don't know about the way to... dye stations, yeah, dyes are good. The reason why I don't think they would bring dyes into WoW is because they already have so many recolors. It's like, you know, getting us to come up with even better recolors than they are. Because they use recolors of gear as content, don't they? So they design an armor set, and there's like 6 different... Whenever they announce a tier set now, you see on like Wowhead or MMO Champion 6 different colours of the same thing, don't you? So they're not going to give us the power to change the colours, because then all of a sudden there's nothing that's distinguishing between these sets in like the different forms of raiding and other places where you can get them. Oh, they fiddle with the group. There's so many ways to fiddle the group finder, isn't there? That's been put to so many nefarious uses. I mean, ESO isn't brilliant in terms of its cosmetic, like the transmog, because it has to be said, you can't individually transmog each individual piece of gear. Like when you have like what we would call transmog, it's just a full set. You have the set and then the helm. Like a hat, sorry. You can put a hat on if you have one. But it does have the dyes, but other than that, it is quite limited actually. Lord of the Rings Online has the best system I've ever seen in a game for that. I'm sure there are other games as well that have good systems that I just haven't played. Free follower legendary gear in a few days, yeah. Do I think Blizz thought that WoW has lasted as long as it is? No. They frequently said they didn't necessarily even expect it to get to an expansion. They were surprised it took off like it did. And every time they are asked if they thought it would last this long, which is always a really silly question to ask them now, to be fair, because they said years ago, that they said even 10 years ago, they didn't expect it to go on for this long, which I think would be a bit of a lie. I don't think you pump that much money into a game for it to only last a couple of years. But it might be true to say that they probably didn't expect it to last or to have its better days gone after 5 years. And even though it's lost a lot of subscribers since then, I think part of that is not necessarily just World of Warcraft. I think it's just the nature. I think MMOs have fallen from grace. Oh, Star Wars The Old Republic. Okay. So the reason WoW doesn't let us dye our gear is because some dye combos look stupid. The Star Wars The Old Republic team had the same concern. But hey, if people want to look stupid, why not let them? They didn't mind us looking stupid before transmog, though, did they? Like, you know, we all experienced it. Before transmog was a thing, you'd have half of one raid set and half of another, and you'd look ridiculous. How ridiculous did people look when they had, for example, in vanilla, the Judgment legs, which was the skirts bit, and then Lightbringer chest and shoulders? Yeah, I mean, the phrase that was used by a former GM of mine, which has stuck with me because it's a perfect way to describe it, is, you know, when you're in transitional gear, you look like clown vomit. Your whole purpose with gearing was to get a set that matched. And as soon as you had a set that matched, the new raid would be out and it was time to go and get that. Because by definition, once you've finished your set, it means you've killed every boss. So you're into the next one now. So that's why Transmog was so good. Not so much that I could wear sets from older tiers, which is good. It's the fact that I could at least match at last. And yeah, as you say that, it is, yeah, I would say, yeah. If people want to look stupid, and anyway, it's subjective. What one person thinks looks stupid, another one thinks looks fantastic. Also, I see people, even in World of Warcraft, coming up with transmogs deliberately to look stupid. Now, I think the reason they don't let us have dyes is because they use the recolours as content. You know. And they wouldn't be able to do that. They'd either have to come up with different armour sets, or they'd have to just accept the fact that the Mythic raid tier set looks exactly like the LFR one. And it'd be more the players that would have to come to terms with that. But I think if you had more cosmetic options, people would be okay with that, because how many people don't transmog their tier sets anyway? So who cares really if the Mythic set looks different to the normal set? Because no one sees it. No one knows what gear I've got on just to look at me. I'm wearing TBC gear. And my Admiral's hat. No, Captain's hat, sorry. Which is from WoD. You have an NPC mog. Pre-transmog, some of the BIS lists on Edited Jerks were designed around making sure the hat was the offset tier piece. Yeah. Well, I mean, Black Temple I was okay with for that, because I didn't like the Halo thing for the Paladins in Tier 6, but there was a helm that actually matched the Warrior helm that dropped in Mount... No, hold on. What did it drop off? No, it dropped in Black Temple. It dropped on the Council, I think. That actually went quite well with Tier 6. But yes, I was so delighted in Vanilla when I discovered the hide helm option, because I didn't know about it. For ages, I was wearing these, because all the helms looked, well, you couldn't wear helm, like the lowest level helm was like level 30 something anyway. And they all looked the same, and there were male helms as well. They were like with horns coming out the outside. They all were just different colours of the same thing. And then when I found out you could hide them, I thought, oh, that's fantastic. No, you always, Clifford, you always need to go for transmog. You do more damage when you look good. Everyone knows that. I think probably the psychological reason is that when you're looking at yourself and you're distracted by how awful you look and your shoulders don't match your cloak and all that sort of thing, then it puts you off and your damage is lower. Well, the Mythic just has the shoulders thing, doesn't it? I've never really noticed about the difference between the different raid sets anymore, because I instantly transmog it. But I don't even look at them. But I thought it was just the shoulders that were different with Mythic. But I don't know, maybe not. There was a hat I got to sell that made quite a lot of gold, and that was the Admiral's hat. But you needed to farm things in hinterlands. But which I did. And I actually, yeah, I made quite a lot of money out of that. I know someone who made a load of money. This was a complete fiddle. It shows you how ignorant people were when it just come out. They made money by selling the patterns for tuxedos. Now, the patterns for tuxedos you could buy off an NPC not 100 yards away from the auction house. But people didn't know about it, so he would buy the patterns, sell them on the auction house for a massive amount of gold. How you still make money selling white patterns? So there are still people today who don't realise that white patterns mean it comes from a vendor. Or do you mean selling money selling the actual tuxedos themselves? I use the tuxedos for my bank outs. Let's see if I can find one. Runic cactus. What? I thought people knew now. Right, I'm just getting a screenshot or something. Oh no, I don't need to save it. Yes, but my banks are all full, Kisasha. So I need someone to send other stuff. My bank out now is absolutely rammed with those bind on account gear things, because I haven't dinged any characters since Argus came out. So they're useless for everyone else. Unless I suppose they're Titanforge. But I'm not banking on that. Where do I want to be? Completely forgotten. No, it's not in there. Where the hell have I saved it? Thete Gaming Switch. I need to organise my... There we go. That's my stylish bank out. Of course, it has to be a Worgen so you can get the top hat as part of that quest. Which unfortunately is not available as an account-wide transmog. So I had to actually make it as a Worgen. Obviously I have it in human form when they're actually wandering around Stormwind. Yeah, there's loads of ways you can make gold that I don't have, that I don't do just because I just buy tokens. I noticed on Reddit someone saying that it's now broken 300k for a WoW token on EU. I noticed it was 290k yesterday. So maybe it's time to get another couple of tokens. Swell my coffers a little bit. No, I don't have the diamond tips cane, no. I don't really need that. They're just trying to look smart, not necessarily... like I could have gone for the monocle if I wanted them to look posh. I just wanted them to look smart. Since they are a banker, they're a bank clerk, as I see it. They're managing my things. So, yeah, I'll get a couple of WoW tokens tonight, I think. I don't know. I've seen all sorts of mad comments on that Reddit post. Some people talking about Destiny 2. I really don't see that. Gifting. I don't understand how gifting would cause it to go up. Because that would mean there's more people. Like when the price goes up in terms of the amount of gold it's for, that suggests there's fewer people. The balance between the number of people buying it with real life money and buying it with in-game gold, the balance is towards the people wanting to buy it with in-game gold. So being able to gift it would increase the number of people buying it for real life money, should make the price come down. Except, of course, they'd be buying them and not actually putting them on the auction house. So maybe just all making it equal. But I don't know. I don't see that. People have somehow linked Destiny 2 with it. I really don't know how that works. You know, if Antorus was imminent, it might be because of BlizzCon. Do you know what it could be? It could just be because of BlizzCon. And people know that there's going to be an announcement about the next expansion. And people are thinking, oh, you know... I wonder what World of Warcraft's like now. I haven't played in a year. I'll come on back on and see how it's going now with a year's extra content. It might be as simple as that. Can turn tokens into Battle.net currency. Oh, I see. That's the Destiny 2 link, is it? Yeah. Well, I can see it being BlizzCon having an effect. Maybe the Destiny 2 thing then. I didn't realise that. Well, yeah, I paid for my Warforged, my Lightforge, sorry, whatever it's called. Warframe, that's it, sorry. With a couple of WoW tokens. Yeah, I know the North American ones are a lot cheaper. As some people have pointed out, though, I think you pay... Hold on. I suppose it depends. In terms of the real-life cost of the token, it's not an exact match either, because of, obviously, local currency exchange rates. But yeah, it is on the EU. It's very expensive. I remember when they were still like 40k in like WOD. In fact, when they first came out, I think it was like 20 odd. 20 US dollars. Let's have a think then. What would 20 US dollars be? That would be £16 in UK pounds, and it costs us £17. That's actually probably about the same. Maybe it's different for people who use euros. I don't know what the exchange rate is for euros. But generally speaking, £1 British pound. No, hold on, let me get this right. $1 US is £8.8, like 80 pence. So $20, I suppose, would be £16. So it's about the same. We pay £17 for it. So I get a lot better deal. But then again, I suppose, you know, maybe it depends upon... For vendor bought things, obviously, we get a better deal in the EU if you're able to buy them with real life money. Maybe in terms of the general economy, that's obviously going to change from realm to realm, isn't it? In terms of how much bang for your buck you're going to get. Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, Romania won't have its own separate servers, yeah. Well, it seems to be about the same if you're using pounds. Unless you have to pay a bit extra, Kasasha, with having to change from one currency to another just to buy the thing. I suppose that depends on your bank, doesn't it? But I mean, it's a useful thing now. I mean, I did this like every expand. I don't really use gold. I don't like get stuff off the black market auction house. The only thing I'd maybe be interested in on there is, you know, like anyone else, I wouldn't mind the tier 3 warrior set, but it costs you so much and it takes so long to be able to get it that I can't be bothered. So the only thing I really spend my gold on is, I don't even know at the moment. Like, when a new expansion comes out, you want stocks so that you can buy all the good BOE stuff, so you can help gear up your characters really quickly. So it's good for that. You know, you usually want a couple of million stuffed aside for when the new expansion comes out. And then, as I say, you can just buy all the stuff. Sorry, your link is going to get removed. I wonder how Blizz is going to handle your something balance when they convert it over to CAD before next year. I have an alchemist, so that's what I mean. I can, well, I don't, the thing is, because whenever I want, like at the moment, right, I'm going to spend £34 and get 600,000 gold now. Or I could spend, at a time when I like to split my time between playing the game, playing another game, and doing stuff for this channel, and I don't feel like I have enough time to do all of those things, I could spend an hour making flasks and potions and putting them on the auction house. I'd rather just spend 1 minute getting the WoW tokens and putting them on the auction house. Okay. It says deleted link for me. You feel like creating a new alt, what race and class? I've just created a new alt to do my beginners series. I created a dwarf priest. A ginger female dwarf priest. I was accused of rolling a gnome. One of the officers in my guild noticed that I'd created a priest and saw that it was in like Dunmarrow and started trolling me, saying to people that I'd been rolling a gnome. You wonder how long the WoW team will spend talking about the new raid in Blizzcon. That's an interesting point because they've got 3 major things that you'd think they should be covering at BlizzCon with World of Warcraft. 1 is the new expansion. 2, the new raid. They should talk about Antorus. And 3, what's to come after Antorus. They need to talk about all 3 of those things. Which is going to be tricky. I don't think they've ever had so much to talk about in a BlizzCon for one game. But we'll have to see how that goes. Because I don't think they're doing any more discussions than they normally would. So it could well be the case that maybe we don't find out as much about the next expansion as we'd like. You know, maybe we'll just find out a very brief amount of information. But we'll just have to wait and see. You know, if it is on the 3rd, then that means there's like what, 10 days to go, and then we'll know, or we'll know something. Because again, you would think that's what they're talking. Because obviously there's the Friday announcements. You would think that would be on the Friday one, wouldn't you? The new expansion. And that the other stuff on the Saturday. Hi, Jack. Coming in at the end again, I see. Oh, they have to announce the next expansion. Unless they're doing something really weird. Because if Antorus is the last major raid of Legion, something has to come out in about a year's time, maybe a bit less. So it has to start being tested properly. So they have to announce it. Eye level 1000 legendaries are coming with the opening of Antorus. Yes. Yes, they are. What are you getting tomorrow in the patch? Or you're not getting anything, really. Like, there's the new vendor, as someone said. Basically, the main exciting piece of content, if it's exciting to anyone, is the legendary tokens, but that only covers people that have all of their classes legendaries. If you're in the habit of using Convergence of Fates, then that's been nerfed, so maybe you won't. But there's not a lot in it. Yeah, Primal Saga Trader. Oh yeah, they've done some. Yeah, was it Balanced Druids? One of the Druid tier sets got nerfed, didn't they, or something? You will be able. No, you can upgrade your legendaries in 7.3.5. That's when Antorus comes out. That's not yet. That's another few weeks. About 4 weeks, I think, by my rec. If it follows this 11-week thing, then Antorus comes out in 4 weeks, and that's when you'll be able to get the quest to upgrade your legendaries. Now, the only fight I'd thought about using Convergence of Fates is Maiden on Mythic, and oh, it's too late now. I never bothered. It's too late to do it now. So it's not a content patch. That's why it's called 7.3.2. It's not designed to have... But it has some content because it has the vendor, so they couldn't just do it as a hotfix. Oh, female Draenei. Why would you make a male Draenei? That's the most... Oh my god, no. Female every time. There are very few races where you get away with being male. It's female for almost all of the races. Tides of the Ancient. No, no, no. The meme was Tides of Vengeance, but it's not going to be that either. It's just the sort of fakes that people come out with all the time. Easily photoshopped. It'll not be Tides of anything, will it? Because, I mean, the reason for people saying that is because it ties with Tides of Doom, which was the Warcraft 3 expansion that brought the Naga. But, you know. If anything, it might even be something with Storm in the title because of the book Before the Storm. So it might be Storm of something. Or, you know, something Storm. Storm of something is probably better because it's easy to... Like Legion is the first expansion where you haven't been able to shorten it. Like there's no abbreviation. It's just 2 syllables anyway. So it's the first expansion where there's been no abbreviation for it. Whereas if it's Storm of something, they'd have to be careful what though. Because you couldn't call it Storms of Doom, because then that would spell sod. You have to be a little bit careful. But yeah, if I had to put money on it, and I wouldn't like to, I would probably say the word Storm in there somewhere. We might end up getting another event, a bit like with the Kata one, where you go out in that ship and then that Kraken gets you. Since it might be a bit better this time. And without that idiot running around saying I'm on a boat. What's wrong with some nice grass? What? No, the last FIFA I played was FIFA 97. So I certainly don't remember FIFA 2014. But you would... It might be possible, like, in the future... I mean, I'm talking about the far... Well, maybe not that far future. Like, if... There'd be no reason why you couldn't have something to scan your face into something and put it on a character as home entertainment systems become more popular. Oh, sod means maybe a different thing. I'm not thinking sod as in a pile of earth. I see. Yeah, well, it can be used for that in this country as well. But it's also used as an offensive term. A very minor one, it's not hugely offensive, but nonetheless a derogatory term. The new novel has a synopsis now. The last I saw, it was just going to be talking about what happens immediately after Argus. NHL, is that not National Hockey League? No, I've only played hockey once. It's an extremely violent game. In fact, I knew a guy who played badminton with me at university, but he also played hockey, and his shins were always a right mess. Anyway, as we appear to be talking about, I don't know what nonsense this is, and it's 9 o'clock now. Well, it's 9:05 now. So I'm going to sort of draw it to a little bit of a close then, if someone wants to throw something at the last moment. But we appear to be now diverging, going from hockey to ice hockey, which is just even more violent, hence all the armour I imagine they need to do. More mini-games in WoW. Okay, last question here. Will there be more mini-games in WoW like the Plants vs Undead? Now, when you said more mini-games, I would say probably yes. But when you say like the Plants vs Undead thing in Hullsbred Foothills, sorry, I'm thinking much more in terms of mobile. You know, I think, like Taliesin commented on my video, or Taliesin or Evertal, I don't know which one, of course, about mobile Warcraft game, which is my big fear. And part of my fear is that we already have mobile interactivity with WoW because we have the Order Hall stuff. And actually, if you're going to do missions with the Order Hall, it's better to do it on the mobile. It's better on the mobile than it is in game. You know, it's better designed on the app. So if anything, if they did bring any little tiny games like that, like I think pet battles are going to come to mobile. I think there'll be that interaction with it at some point, quite soon probably. Wouldn't surprise me if that's announced. Yeah, I can well imagine little games. Do you know another thing I can imagine at some point as well? Like at the moment, we have these seasonal events. So you've got the Hallows End things where you go around Ironforge and drop the bombs and you do other things. I can see them doing content that can also be done on the mobile app and start to sneak it in. Maybe not imminently, but I can start to see them sneaking more mobile stuff in. But anyway. So, yeah, but I'm going to call it to an end there on that note. Thanks for coming on. I'll be back again, obviously, with this next week.